Okay, hi everyone. I want to apologize. I have not had time to go through this presentation like I normally would because I've been out catching deer fawns from daylight to dark for the last week and a half. So I really haven't had a lot of time to practice this. And to preface it, Brian Dreher actually made this presentation last year, so it's the exact same presentation he presented last year to this same group. Okay, first off, and I know you have heard this so many times today, congratulations, you guys are in an elite group right now. These are last year's numbers. 16,459 people applied for a sheep tag. 278, 1.69% drew. So you are in an elite number of people. This year, that's more like 42,000 people for 232 tags. So when you do the math on that one, you're one out of probably 0.5% of people that have a tag for bighorn sheep. And speaking personally, I'm jealous of every single one of you. Okay, our primary objective of this talk is to make sure that you are familiar with the regulations, be able to accurately determine sex or gender, and how to judge ram's horn size. So, for the regulation, a ewe is any female sheep with a horn at least 5 inches long. Okay, everybody knows what 5 inches is when it's right there by your hand, but can you determine that at 300 or 400 yards? If you can't, you probably need to get closer. Rams are, a legal ram is any ram with at least a horn that goes through 1/2 of a circle. Okay? And the problem with sex identification or determination is yearling rams look almost exactly like adult ewes during the hunting season. So, physical description of bighorn sheep. We all know what a sheep looks like. My favorite animal, I wear it on my chest every day or on my shoulder. Males are about 200 to 300 pounds on the hoof. Females about 120 to 165 pounds. Horns are on both animals. They are not deciduous, and they're made out of keratin, the same stuff that's your fingernails. They grow continually throughout the year. When nutrition is good, they grow faster. During the winter, when nutrition is bad, they grow slower, so we can actually age an animal by their horn because they do not shed it just like a deer and elk. They're brown or gray with a white behind and white legs. So a lot of times what you'll see when you see them on the side of the hill is just that white behind. They're very hard to see sometimes. Can anybody find the rams in this picture? I think there's 14 or 15 rams in that picture. Can you see them now? Obviously, it was a hot day. This is just down the road at Rampart Range, right there on the Glen Erie, the lawn, or just up from the lawn. I think if I remember from last year, there were 13 rams in that picture, and every one of them fit in the shade of that tree. So this is basic size on how they grow throughout their life. Lambs are obviously small. During the hunting season, they're going to be about half the size of a yearling and about 1/3 the size of an adult sheep. Their horns are going to be really tiny, whether they're a ram lamb or a ewe lamb. A yearling is intermediate in size. Probably going to be, a yearling ram is going to be really close to the size of an adult ewe. And an adult ewe doesn't grow very much after her first year. So she's about adult size right there at that 2-year age class. And rams continue to grow in body size until they get about 5-6 years old. Sheep tracks, they're ungulates. They have 2 toes that they walk on, and they have two dew claws. They're kind of heart-shaped. A deer is more clover-shaped. Sheep are really, really pointy and heart-shaped. I guess that one on the right-hand or left-hand side is a pretty bad cast. So, Scat is kind of unique. The way they described it in college, when I was going through college, is deer are M&M sized, elk are peanut M&M sized, sheep look like Hershey's Kisses. So if you think about that, sheep usually have a flat side on one side and a point on the other. And then ewes. Like I said, this is really important for those guys that have ewe tags. How many people have ewe tags in the room? Awesome. Awesome. So, to make sure that you're shooting a ewe, there's several different characteristics that you really need to look at, and look at it closely. Their horns, oops, wrong button, have a very small base and a slight taper throughout the growth of the horn, and they're kind of blade-like. If you look at this picture right here, you can see that age ring I was talking about. There's a little indentation on the front of the horn and a dark ring. There's another one right there. On that one, there's a good one right there, and there's a good one right there. A barrel-shaped body, and then when she pees, she squats like a dog, like a female dog. So these all appear to be ewes. You can see blade-like on the front, blade-like, slight taper here, and if you look in the back, that one's a little bit different, isn't it? So, this would be a good example of a ewe. Yearling rams, they have a much larger horn base, larger than their 1 1/4 inch eye. The horns are more triangular in shape rather than blade-like, so they're going to be a whole lot larger at the base. The horn tapers all the way from the teat, and when a male pees, he kind of stretches out. I'm sure the mountain goat people said the same thing. A male mountain goat and a male bighorn sheep will stretch out, and the penis is right in the middle of their belly. So the urine will come from there rather than from the hind end. So this is a yearling ram. This is obviously a ewe. The horn base is much larger than the eye. Much larger than that one. Has a much thicker neck, which is kind of relative. It's kind of like saying how long is the horn at 100 yards. She has a very long nose, the horse face Ben was talking about. On a yearling ram, his face kind of is shorter. It looks like his nose is a whole lot shorter. He got kicked in the face or something. So this is a perfect example of two, probably about 8, 9-month-old lambs. Which is the one on the right? That'd be a ram, definitely. It's really easy to tell when they're side by side. This is obviously a young ewe. This is a young ram. And obviously from the rear view, this does help. You can see the external genitalia. Sometimes they make it really easy for you to see it. Most of the time they don't do that. Okay, what is this one here? Yeah, I believe that's a young ram. He's got the bigger base over his eye, short horn length, really short face. It looks like his face is a really sharp triangle. And if you're in doubt, don't shoot. This is one ram lamb, that was shot on a ewe tag. The person brought it in for his mandatory check. Obviously, he went home without his sheep and with a little present from us. If you do make the mistake, fess up to it. It's a whole lot easier and acceptable to admit your mistake, tell us what you did, bring it in, process it for somebody so they can use it. I'm not going to tell you you're not going to get a ticket. You'll probably walk away with a small ticket, but it's much smaller in price, and you know you did the right thing. If you leave it up on the hill and we find out about it and we come and get you, it's going to be a substantially more robust citation, and you're going to be in a bunch more problems. And remember, guys, everybody is out in the woods this time of year. September is a great time to be in the woods, so you don't want to make that mistake and get caught. Okay, yearling ram on the left, adult ewe on the right. Okay, is this a legal ewe? Why not? I see heads shaking no. Remember, legal ewe is one horn over 5 inches. She's got one horn over 5 inches. The other one is broken off. They do butt heads just like the rams do. Sometimes they butt heads with rams. So occasionally you will find one of these broken. Brian always likes to say that, yes, in Colorado this would be a legal ewe, but the picture was taken in Yellowstone National Park, so it's not legal. Finally got it. Okay, bighorn sheep rams. Like I said before, the horns are always growing. They always grow from the base. Size depends on the ram's age and its access to quality nutrition, and its different horn configuration. Just like some people have short legs, long torsos, long arms, sheep have different horn configurations. Their horns can be really tight curled, which will mean they'll get to full curl quicker, but they won't have the length. Or they could be really wide and sweeping, and it'll look like it's a half curl, but it'll have a 38-inch or a 30-inch horn length. The annual growth rings, we already talked about this a little bit. Like I said, from this point to this point is last year's growth, or this year's growth on the hunting season. From this point to that point is the year before, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the way to his lamb tips. So we can estimate their age by the number of rings that are showing, or if they broomed off that first growth ring, which is probably right here on this ram, then we go number of growth rings plus 1. So brooming, a lot of people think brooming is a reaction to the ram having his eyesight blocked. I think it's more of a result of the interspecific interactions. We all know how rams fight. When you're bashing heads together as hard as you possibly can, if one horn tip touches that horn in the wrong spot or in the big spot of another one, it's going to give way and break off. You see a lot of rams in the breeding season with bright yellow tips on the end of their horns. That's where they've broken off the horn, the end of the horn. I don't think that they actively think enough that I can't see, I've got to rub this off. So I think it's more of a reaction to them fighting than it is to see. So, just like this, on this one, when a ram is young, just like it with a mountain goat, they have a full set of teeth that are really sharp, really easy to process all of the nutrition. So they grow faster in their first 4 years than they do all the years past that, because after 4 years, they've got all their mature teeth. From that point on, they're slowly wearing their teeth off so they don't process their food as well. So, on this ram, since it's broomed, it's already taken the first year off. So that first annuli would have been right there. So on this one, we'd go one. So this would be the first winter, second winter, third winter, fourth winter, fifth, et cetera, all the way to 12th. Once you get down to the bottom, it's really hard to tell the difference between age class because their horns are growing so small at that later stage in their life. It's really hard to tell which is a ring or which is the normal indentations on those horns. Okay, another one that grew that has its whole thing. There's the first annuli, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. So, determining length of curl. This is very important for those guys that are hunting rams, because how big does a ram have to be legal in Colorado? Half curl. Everybody said half curl. Half curl, exactly. So, to determine that, we draw a line right through the middle of the eye. Okay? It goes through the hole in the ear. Not the base of the ear, not the tip of the ear, but the hole in the ear. So you have to think about where that hole goes into the head. And then goes straight through those two, will come to the half curl. On that one, we draw another line that goes straight down through the middle of it, bisects that just at a right angle. That'll give you 3/4 curl. Okay? So once it's past this point, it's a legal ram. Everything else is just up to your preference. So half curl rams. The legal definition is right up there. I'm not going to read it to you, but you can read it right there. But basically we said bisecting the eye, the ear, and it has one or both horns past that point. So most half curl rams will not have any brooming. They still have their lamb tips all the way out. It's still really pointy on both ends. That's because they haven't reached sexual maturity, so they're not going to fight with the big boys yet. The horns sweep back, and it's about 20 inches long. These rams usually about 2 to 3 years old. Sometimes we'll get one that's 1.5, but usually it's about 2 to 3 years old.
That definition up there says the base of the ear. You said the hole in the ear.
You're right. What happens if the ear is removed and all you have is a skull? So visualize where the hole is in the ear, because that's what we don't require you to bring in the whole head with the cape on it. We require you to bring the whole skull in to bring it. So without the cape, we have to have a point. The good point is the ear, and the base of the ear and the hole in the ear are just about the same spot. Okay, great example of a half curl ram. He's probably a little bit more than half, but that would definitely be a good half curl ram, legal sheep to harvest. And one thing that's really good to note is horns grow in a circle. So when he reaches half curl, usually that tip is pointing towards the ground. Because if it's pointing backwards, it hasn't gone through that curl yet until it gets to the point going down to the ground. 5/8 curl ram has gone past the half curl line, but has not gone all the way to the 3/4 curl line. So if you divide that line in half again, it'll be 5/8 curl, usually about 3 to 5 years old. 20 to 25 inches, 20 to 25 inch horns. Couple good examples of 5/8 curl rams. This one's great because he's still got his lamb tip. This guy is obviously broomed off to the same point as this one. Both of those are 5/8 curl rams. This one's probably a year older than that one. 3/4 curl ram. Gets to the bottom of the curl, the point starts to face forward. Once it starts to face forward and isn't pointing down at the ground, it goes from a 5/8 curl to a 3/4 curl. Broomed or not, obviously. Obviously a broomed ram, or a broomed ram, an unbroomed ram. Greater than 3 years old, all the way up, this ram could be all the way up to 12 years old. You don't know how old they are until you start counting the rings. Brian always says that this is the Pope and Young minimum. I think that's 130 inches or something. No, I don't know what it is. 140. Good example of a 3/4 curl ram. Still has his lamb tips. And to tell you the truth, guys, this is probably the representative of a Colorado ram. 3/4, most of them are broomed at this point. Getting past this point in Colorado doesn't happen very frequently. Most of our rams fight. Some places they fight so hard they don't get past 5/8 curl. 7/8 curl ram. Ram has to be greater than 5 years old. Usually has brooming, and the tip is curling up. 30 to 34 inches, about 14, 15-inch bases on this ram. Pope and Young 160 or Boone and Crockett 160, definitely a mature ram. Another great 7/8 curl ram. Couple more. Obviously 7/8 still hasn't broken the tip of the nose or broken that line going through here. And standing next to an unbroomed 5/8 curl. Full curl ram, obviously more than 6 years old. Usually they come with brooming, sometimes they don't. If you look at the Pueblo ram over there that goes all the way to 1 1/4 curl, he doesn't have very much brooming. This guy has obviously broken over the nose on that side, probably really close on that side. This one's right there at the bridge of the nose. For me personally, for a ram to be called a full curl ram, has to break that line over the nose. If you have 75 cents, you don't say you have $1. So, 7/8 curl, doesn't break that bridge of the nose, full curl does. Usually the horns, depending on the growth pattern of these, I've seen some full curl rams that will only have about 34 inches on the horn. If you get a really good ram that drops below the jaw, these can be up to 40 inches long. Mass carries all the way through. Probably for a Boone and Crockett score, this one would be in the low 180s, I would bet. Depends on how much mass he has, and that's an ugly angle to determine length. Is that a shooter? This one, I believe, was called square tops. If you see a ram like that, shoot it. This one's the one that was out there at Pueblo Reservoir. This is just before he died. You can see his backbone is really prominent right there. He was on his last legs. He was about to leave the ram band he was to go off and die where he chose to die. That ram's about 12 and a half, 13 and a half years old. Actually had 4 broken ribs that were in the funny shape of a ram's horn. Nice curl on him. So he got kicked out of the herd. Is this a legal ram? Yeah. Just like the ewes, all it takes is one legal horn. Obviously, he lost this one. We do have a couple sheep running around like that. They make unique trophies. How many guys have a one-horn sheep? Everybody's got a little 5/8 curl 2-horn sheep. How many have a big, long 1-horn sheep? Okay. Usually when you see a group of rams, It's going to be in this situation. There's always going to be multiple sheep in the group. When they're all in a big wad like this, picking out the one you want to shoot and only shooting one is an issue. Have patience. They're going to give you a shot. Don't make the mistake. I know several people that the rams went into the slide chute. The big one was in the front. When they came out, I shot the big one, and he shot less than a half-curl ram. That makes your day go from really great to really bad really quick, because you can't shoot the other one when he comes out. Okay? Great picture of a guy taking his ram skull out. These things will weigh almost up to 50 pounds without the hide on it. Put the hide on it, it adds another 25, 30 pounds. So be prepared when you shoot a ram. This is what's going to happen. And on this picture, I would hope that, since I don't see any meat or any blood on him, I would hope he packed the meat out already. Colorado state statute says you have to make the meat fit for human consumption. If you leave it up on the hill and it rots, but your cape came back in perfect shape, you made the wrong choice. You're in trouble. We don't require you to show the meat. We always ask where it is. I think that's wrong. We should have you show the meat that showed that you packed it off the mountain in addition to your trophy. But you're not going to get in trouble if your cape spoils. You're going to get in trouble if you didn't go back and the meat spoils. So think about that. Bring the meat off first. The cape will stay in the tree. It's obviously snowy. He could have left that cape up there for a couple days and then got it. And ewes are a great hunt. You guys are going to have a great time. Sheep meat is the absolute best meat, well, second best meat that I've ever eaten. First is oryx. Everybody asks that question. Oryx or gemsbuck is the best meat I've ever eaten. Sheep is a close second. Don't waste a bit of it. It's not like mutton, the domestic version of sheep. It is incredible. So, and you guys are going to love it. This is actually Brian on his sheep hunt, glassing for his ram before he shot his. Okay, other tips. You're going to hear this from me 2 or 3 times. The one thing that can make and break your hunt is you. Sheep hunting is the pinnacle of hunting. It is not easy. It is sometimes not fun, but the way to make your experience that much better is to get in the best shape of your life. Because no matter where you hunt a sheep, it's uphill one way or the other. And it's not usually a gradual slope. So use energy conservation. Let your optics do your walking. You're not going to walk up on an animal until you know where it is. They're not like deer and elk. You don't surprise them. Sheep have exceptional vision and really good hearing. They'll usually see you before you see them. So sometimes it's good to have a vehicle at the top and at the bottom. Gives you an option. Sorry, I'm 13 years old. At the top and at the bottom, so you have an option of either going up or going down. My recommendation is almost always go down, unless you have a cliff. Camp placement, my first sheep hunt, I didn't know anything. I had the wall tent base camp at the trailhead. Climbed 3 miles up and down every day before I even got to timberline. I will never do that ever again. Don't waste the energy by going to a base camp if you have another option. Because all you're doing is hurting yourself both in time and in energy. And sometimes these hunts take 5, 7, 10, 15 days before you're successful. You can't keep doing 3 miles, 6 miles a day up and back, 4 hours a trip, and make it a successful sheep hunt. And then the right underneath fitness is mental. Going days and days and days and not seeing sheep or seeing small sheep can be mentally fatiguing. I have a sheep unit where you can go 5 days and never see a ram. And then all of a sudden they're right in the same spot that you've been looking at. It's really hard to sit there and sit 5 days without seeing a ram and make that hunt last. Okay, any questions? I went through that super fast. Another question.
What's the maximum or minimum elevation for the habitat of bighorns?
Sea level to 14,000 feet. Anywhere.
Can you repeat the question?
Huh?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. He asked what the minimum and the maximum of elevation that you can find a bighorn sheep. So desert bighorns will be all the way down to sea level. Rocky Mountain bighorns, I've seen them on the slopes of 14,000 foot peaks. In Colorado, it depends on what unit you're in. We have units on the eastern plains that the highest elevation is 4,000 feet. So they're anything from 1,500 to 4,000 feet. The units I'm familiar with, 8 to 14,000 feet. Depends on the unit you're in. They're usually, for the alpine sheep, they're usually in that band right where timberline is. But it could be anything. Any other questions?
Best way to field judge ewes horn length.
Ears and eye. The ears are, I'm sorry, Jason is after me. The best way to judge a ewe's horn length. The ear is about 6 inches long. The eye is about 1.25 inches, as we found out in the goat talk. So anything over ear length, you're probably legal. Watch out, because everybody tries to shoot the biggest ewe in the group, and the biggest ewe in the group is usually a yearling ram. Okay. I had a question earlier about do rams get killed on ewe tags? Quite frequently. I know in my experience at least 3 times I've had to deal with that, and I've talked to several other officers that have had to deal with that. So it does happen, and we know we all make mistakes. Like I said, it's not that you made the mistake, it's how you handle the mistake after you made it. Another question. Come on, I have to show him that I learned. How good is their sense of smell? It's good, but not as good as a bear's. Okay, they will wind you. You always want to try to approach them from the downwind side. And we'll go back into that in the hunting part of things. I got to teach the hunting part too.
About 13 years ago, I was hunting with a buddy, had a tag, and I found a skull. Can you collect it?
Okay, question is, if you find a skull out in the woods, can you collect it? Yes, you can, but we ask you to tell us about it. Preferably if it's in a spot where you can leave it, where we can do an investigation, because obviously we do have people that shoot them, let them rot, and then go and pick them up. Most likely it's not that, but we want to have the option. Get involved with your local conservation officer, carry his phone in your cell phone, his phone number in your cell phone. Call them, ask them how they want to handle it, because each guy is different. Some of them will hike 12 miles to go look at it. Other guys will say, yeah, bring it, take pictures of it and bring it down. You can keep them, but remember, we do want to see them, because we do like to see the check them.